Okay, hello everyone. A warm welcome to everyone joining this stream this time around. So this is the second part of the stream that we started, I think it was a day ago or so, where we are building a email verification API, right? So what are our goals? First of all, our goal here is to learn how to quickly build simple applications on Express using Node and Typescript. And I chose this project because it's fairly simple. There's not much complexity at all to it. And it also gives me a good opportunity to show how would you do something that probably most of you haven't done and didn't really think about how it works, which is how do emails work, right? So when we verify an email inbox, what we have to do is we have to use the SMTP protocol to communicate with the mail server and check whether or not that email inbox exists. And that's exactly what we're coding, right? So it's an app which is fairly functional, fairly easy to program. But also in addition, why I chose this topic is because it's a simple app that you can develop, or a simple API that you can develop, and then potentially you can bring it to market, right? There's many ways which you could do that. You could publish your API on the API exchange such as Rapid API, or you could decide to just build out the website and market the API yourself and bring in customers yourself, right? So there's many reasons, and one of the overarching goals of this channel is to bring coding closer to everyone, make it more accessible to learn how to code, and hopefully enable people to either get a better job or do some side projects which generate income, so on and so forth, right? So I think this is a very, very good topic to start off with that goal in mind. Okay, so having said that, let's dive into the code and let's see where we left off from the previous stream. So if you remember, one of our goals, or should I say, one of the things that was not our goal is, to kind of build out a complex project with complex structures and kind of focus on the structure part of a project. Like we're not doing this. Instead, what we're doing is, as I said before, we're building out a quick API and just coding and making sure that things work. And then potentially in the future, we will have time to see how we would refactor the code and make it in such a way which is better for maintainability, from a maintainability standpoint, okay? Now, having said that, if you watched the previous stream, you would have seen that last time when I started to, I'll run through this, for those of you that didn't connect to the last stream, what we've implemented here. But for those of you that watched the previous stream, you will have seen that I kind of struggled to figure out a good way to program the sequence of commands that we have to send to the SMTP server. And so I'm going to start off the stream by basically changing this code up, okay? And you'll see why. I'm going to simplify this drastically because I think it's way too complex for what it should be, okay? But let's first recap what we're doing here, okay? So we have a pretty standard Express project with TypeScript, okay? We have very, very few dependencies, just the typical dependencies you would have in any Express project, which is Express and body parser. And then if we go into server, we basically kind of laid out the 4 steps that we needed to do. So we accomplished the first 3 in the first stream. And today we're going to be focusing on finishing the 4th, right? So we only have one single endpoint. And what this endpoint does is it accepts an email address and then basically goes ahead and validates that email and sees if the inbox exists, right? So what are the steps that we need to do to see if an inbox exists? Well, first of all, we need to validate that they have sent us an email address, right, in the body of the post request. Second of all, we need to perform a quick format validation. So this means we need to make sure that what they send us roughly resembles an email address. And this is for obvious reasons, but mainly because then we need to kind of use the domain part of the email. So let's say @gmail.com to figure out which email server is behind that domain name. And in order to do that, we resolve what's called the MX records of a domain name, right? So we need to basically look up the DNS records of a domain name and specifically look for the MX records. Now, Node and probably many other languages have a built-in library that makes that very, very easy for us to do. And so if, here we have the first part where we basically validate the email address with a regular expression. Here we have this function that basically resolves the MX record. Now this is super simple. I've just wrapped around the Node DNS promise library with the resolve MX method. And basically what we're doing is, if it finds any records, then go ahead and return that. If it doesn't, just return an empty array, right? So this is what we're doing. Then we are sorting the MX records by priority. So as I also mentioned in the previous stream, we need to basically, so any domain name may have more than one SMTP host name associated to the MX records, and this is basically for redundancy reasons, to make sure that you can always send an email to Gmail, even if one of the hosts is down, for example, right? So Gmail and any email service will kind of give you a series of MX or host names, but along with that, they will give you a priority or a preference, or there's various different names that people use for this, right? And basically, the idea is the lower the number, the first you have to prioritize that host name. So that's why here we're sorting the MX records by priority. By the way, here we still didn't take care of the use case or the case where we resolved to an empty list, right? We need to take care of that. And then basically, we're grabbing the first one. So obviously this would give an error if this was empty, but we'll deal with that later. And basically we're testing the inbox on the server, right? So what we're doing here, we're connecting over port 25, which is the standard port for SMTP, onto the hostname. And then, this creates an open connection. Some people call it the socket. In Node, essentially, this is a stream. So the standard way of interacting with a stream on Node is to basically listen to events. And the events can be, it's a very, very predefined set of events that can happen. The standard one is the onData event, which is basically whenever the stream receives data, you can listen to this event and get the data and manipulate it. Then there's other events such as on-error or on-connect, right? Which, on-error is fairly simple. There's some kind of error, so we're just going to reject the entire promise that we're building here. And basically on-connect is pretty useless for us. So I'm just going to log something and that's it, okay? Now, where we left off last stream was I was trying to create this strange data structure that kind of holds the sequence of commands that we need to send over SMTP, right? So whenever the connection is established, what's the expected response from the server? And what's the next stage, right? So the next stage would be, okay, once the connection is established, we need to send an extended hello command to the SMTP server. So this would be the command. And then after we send it, this would be the expected response code. And then the next stage would be this, and so on and so forth, right? The problem with this approach is that in TypeScript, this is it's challenging to implement if you want to strictly type it, which is the whole idea of TypeScript, right? And I was running into issues where, so for example, here, the first stage is checking that the connection is established, doesn't have a command in this object as the rest of them do, because we've already sent the command. We're just waiting on the data on this event. And so we're just expecting a reply code, and then we have a next stage name, right? And similarly, this last command, send quit, doesn't have a next stage because it doesn't have a next stage, right? It is the last stage. So this data structure is not very uniform across all the steps. And of course, you can type this in such a way where you have optionals for all of those, properties that are not going to be present, but it just generates problems down the line where you're going to constantly have to evaluate. For example, if current stage doesn't have a next stage name, then I'm going to reject with an error. Where this stage always has a next stage name because we've hard coded it into here, right? So it's kind of messy. It's not ideal. And this is essentially just TypeScript, telling you that you're probably not doing something well. Like your data structure is not the best. It's a bit messy, right? So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it simple, which is usually the best way to fix things. And what I'm going to do is essentially I'm going to get rid of this object. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to code all of these different properties into each case. So what we're doing here is we're keeping track of what's the current stage. So for example, the current stage can be check connection established. We're keeping track of this, and given the current stage name, we will have a set of expected reply codes and next stage names and all that. But then the code here will just do whatever it needs to do. We won't have to be, accessing this object with this structure that's not uniform somewhere here. And in order to comply with the TypeScript, strict typing requirements, we need to do all of these checks. We're not going to be doing that because I just think it's way too complex, right? So let's start off with, so we finished the last year, we finished this check connection established command. And now what we're going to do is we are going to just continue essentially testing, refactoring this and then implementing the rest of the cases, right? So before I do that, let me quickly open up Postman because, yeah, I'm working with Postman to test this endpoints, right? Okay, so we have here verify email. Let's go back here and we can start the server. So npm run dev, in my case, it's going to start the server. Okay, it's running on port 3000. And then if you click here, there's an error because it's not a GET request, it's a POST request. And something appears to be broken because it's not really handling the request. I'm not sure what stage. Okay. So I'm guessing I'm just not sending a response. That's why it's not really responding on Postman, right? But the first command worked, right? And we connected to Gmail and all that. This is basically where we left off, okay? Okay, so I'm going to cancel this request and I'm going to continue developing here. And I'm going to start by refactoring this case and kind of taking away all of this messy code. Okay. So basically what I want to do is I want to extract these properties for every stage out of this object and into the case, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste these two things. Const expected reply code is going to be equal to the string of 220, and const next stage name is going to be equal to SMTP send hello. Okay. Now here, if not response starts off with expected reply code, because we're going to be using now this one instead of this one from this object. If it doesn't equal to what we're expecting, then this remains the same. We're gonna basically just console error the response and just reject the promise with an error. Okay. Now this is where we can start, cleaning up stuff, right? Because this is a check we have to do to make sure that TypeScript doesn't let's say, tell us off, right? So if I delete that, you can see that we immediately get an error because this can be undefined according to the type definition, right? So we're going to be deleting both of these checks that we had. And basically, current stage name is going to be equal to simply next stage name, right? And actually, this should be camel case because it's not part of the properties of an object. So I'm gonna just, sorry. I'm not sure if that messed up my sound on the live stream. Okay, I think the sound is great. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to do now is, oh yeah, I was about to refactor this, right? Refactor, rename, and I'm going to say expected reply code, camel case this and this as well, refactor, rename, next stage name. Okay, great. It's just basically just to keep things nice and tidy. So current stage name is next stage name. So now, obviously we can also delete this because we're no longer going to be using this. We can just simply send the command. And basically the command is going to be this here, right? It's going to be the command of the next stage, right? So actually, yeah, we do need to update this so that then the next time we receive the on data event, the switch goes to the next stage. But we might as well do it after sending the command. It doesn't really matter. Actually, to be honest, I think the most correct thing to do would be to put it inside here. So let's do this. This looks better in my opinion. And we can say const command is equal to this thing I copied earlier. Okay. Yeah, so this looks much neater, right? Yeah, it looks just much better, right? So we're first evaluating the response doesn't comply with what we're expecting, then just reject. Otherwise, send the command over the socket, right? So we're console logging what we're sending. And here, basically, we're just updating the stage name so that when it breaks, this is already updated. And the next time we receive data in the socket, the switch will change to the next stage, which is this one here, okay? Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. I think that's a much better solution. Okay, oh, sorry, wait, whoa, this is not correct. I put it in the wrong place. This has to go here. Okay, the command, I put the command outside of the switch statement, and it needs to be per case because the command varies per step. So in each case, I need to have the command inside of the case, okay? Right, so, yeah, I mean, this eventually yeah, this should not be here. Exactly. Okay, fine. This eventually, I mean, I'll delete it here so I don't incur any mistakes, and that will create errors down the line, but at least I see where I'm using stuff, right? Okay, so I'm basically going to copy this structure because it's going to be replicated per case, right? So the expected reply code on send hello is going to be 250, right? So I'm going to just update this here. The next stage is going to be send mail from, and the command is going to be mail from blah blah blah. Okay. Right. So I've updated these first, the commands and everything. Now again, if response doesn't start with expected reply code, camel case, obviously, because we've changed that, then socket end, and then we will listen to socket end. Actually, yeah, this is kind of a debate I'm having in my head now, is whether or not I want a socket end or do I want to reject the promise. And I think that what I will be doing is I'm not too sure. Like, I think probably like a good thing to do would be to, I guess, standardize what are we gonna be resolving in this promise, right? So we obviously need to return something. So we want to be returning if, for example, if the connection was successful to the SMTP server, if and basically if the inbox exists on the server, right? I think we want to be doing those two things. So does it make sense to reject a promise here, or do we just end it? And then we can listen to an event on end event and just resolve the promise there or reject it. We do need to end it for sure if it doesn't really, conform to what we're expecting. But yeah, right now I'm not too sure. I think I will keep on coding this and see where that gets us. But we do need a result object, that's for sure. So we will need to say, for example, connection succeeded is going to be false initially, and inbox exists is going to be also false initially, right? And then we're going to be updating this, and then we're going to resolve the promise with these updated values. We'll see. I think that's generally what I'm thinking about now, but we'll see as we go. Okay. Great. Yeah. So let's continue programming the send hello. Okay. Right. So here I'm still not too sure, so I'm just gonna leave a to-do note to come back to this later. Okay. Yeah. So if it does comply to what we're expecting, then basically what we can do is we can just simply go ahead and send the next command, right? So we're going to say sockets.write, and we're going to send the command, and basically basically what we're going to do here is we're just gonna as before update and console log just so we have an indication that something is happening. Okay, so current stage means next stage name, which is send mail from. Okay, so basically this case is done, and we need to break always when we're doing a switch case. So now we can program the next one, which is this was send mail from, right? The previous stage was send hello, so this is send mail from. And now we're basically going to replicate the same thing, right? We just need to update the value. So send mail from is going to be also 250. The command is going to be mail from. And again, if you want a refresher on all of these commands on the SMTP protocol, watch my previous stream, because we played around with the console and interactively sent these commands to Gmail, and so you get a feeling of how this works, okay? Yes, so mail from. Actually, no, this is, recipient 2 is going to be the next one, because we're evaluating the on data of send mail from. So then this is going to be the next command. I probably change the name of this variable and say next command, as I did here with next stage name. That would be probably much more accurate and lead to less errors. Okay, so this is done. So as usual, we're gonna basically do the same check again and again. We're gonna have to figure out what we do here, but I think I'm gonna be resolving instead of rejecting, because there was no real error that happened. It's just that, you know, the server responded something that you know, we weren't expecting. So I'm just gonna resolve with, let's say, inbox exists false, right? Because we couldn't connect, or we didn't get the expected result. So we're just gonna assume that the inbox doesn't exist, right? And then this is just to check if the SMTP connection was okay, and we can send that back to the user if we want. Okay. Okay. So I think I'm going to be resolving the promises here. Next thing we can do is to simply just socket again, write command, and here again we're going to be doing the same thing, console logging, because this part of this application is fairly kind of how would I say it? I don't know, like straightforward and routine. There's just like 4 commands that we have to send in sequence to the SMTP server, and the only problem is, like, why can't we just, let's say, program an array and loop that array and just send the commands in sequence, right? I mean, technically we could, but the problem is that for every command that you send, you have to kind of, you know, listen to what the response is from the server. And the response can be a different code. So this is, we're doing 250, but here we're doing 220, right? So that's why I kind of prefer to do it this way. But again, there's probably millions different ways that you could code this. And this is probably not the best way. But again, this is just to do something quick and learn about the SMTP protocol and how to, you know, get a Express app up and running fairly quickly. Okay, so now we've sent the next command, which is recipient 2. So this is actually the command that will be telling us, you know, if the inbox exists. Okay, so now in this case, so in the next case, we're actually going to be, sorry, I need a break statement here. We're actually going to be updating this object. And by the way, we should actually have been updating it on the connection established as well, right? So if the connection is established, I'm going to say result dot connection succeeded is equal to true. Okay, so like that, we're updating that object there. And I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to say resolve with the result. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to be doing. Maybe makes more sense for me. Okay, and actually, if we want to be strict, I think we should be ending the socket here as well. So if it doesn't exist, or we could potentially send a quit message, but I don't know. I think if we just end the socket there, it's fine. So here we're going to be ending the socket and return resolve the result. Okay, we're going to be doing the exact same thing here. And now we're going to be programming the case where we actually update the other values. So SMTP stage names, send mail from, send recipient to. Sorry, this stage name is not good. Like, I forgot to update this. This should be send recipient to. That's the thing that happens when you copy and paste everything. So this is recipient 2. Now, in the case of send recipient 2, what we want to do, again, we're going to copy and paste the expected reply codes and all that. The expected reply code for send recipient 2 is also 250. And the next stage is send quit. So I'm just going to update that. And this is going to be the quit command. So I'm just going to copy this as well from what I wrote in the last stream. And yeah, so this should be it. Okay. Now, again, we need to run the same procedure of if the response doesn't conform to what we're expecting, socket end and resolve with whatever we have. But if it does, then we know that the inbox exists. Or at least the server is telling us that the inbox exists, right? So let's say result, and I'll dive into this little caveat that I mentioned in just a second. Inbox exists is equal to true. Okay. And then what I can do is, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure we do need a next stage name here. Reason being is that now when I send the command, socket write command, which is going to be quit, I'm going to be closing the connection essentially with this command. So there's not really going to be, anything else to actually listen to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify things. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to console log, because this is fairly useful, just to see what's happening. But also, I am going to be socket ending, and I'm going to return resolve with result. Okay, and this should be pretty much it. So I can delete this. I can delete this entire object, which is not used anyway now, and my ID is telling me because it's grayed out, which is great. And I've simplified my code by a fair amount, I would say. I can delete this type definition, I can delete this stage, and I think overall that's a much better solution. The only thing I would say now is I don't really like to have too much code in the cases. I would maybe ideally like to move this away into some other function or service. But then resolving and rejecting things can become a little trickier, so I'm not going to complicate my life too much right now. Yeah, so I think this is pretty much it. I'm just going to check what are we actually doing with the result here. We're not doing anything, right? We're not even recovering it yet. So what I'm going to do, are we console logging the response? Only in case of errors. So maybe what I'm going to do also is console log and I'm going to console log the response, and I'm console logging the commands anyway. Okay, so response and the commands, and now let's see what's actually happening. Okay, and I do want to recover the result. I do want to recover the result, and basically I also want to probably add it here in the response in the JSON. Okay. So I'm going to say, essentially, I'm just going to expand result and that's it, I think. Why is this complaining? Spread types may only be created for object types. Okay, right. I think what's happening is that this is not really knowing what's being returned. So let us type the result. Type, let's say T. I always like to prepend my types with a capital T. I think this is fairly standard. Test inbox result is going to be equal to, or the type is going to be connection succeeded, is going to be a Boolean, and inbox exist is also going to be a Boolean, right? And this is going to be a Boolean. And so this is going to return a promise of t-test, right? Now, if I go back, this error is resolved because now it knows what it's spreading, right? And so for those of you that don't know what this is doing, this is essentially just getting this object here, which as we can see is of type t-test inbox result, which is essentially this here. It's going to be connection succeeded and inbox exists. It's going to be either true or false. And so it's getting this object, this simple object of which basically has two things in it, and it's spreading it, which means this essentially is going to be equal to, let me just copy and paste here, and it's going to be a bit messy, but just bear with me. This is going to be equal to essentially, let's see, if I copy this and paste it here, this is going to be equal to this, right? I know it's a bit messy, but I hope you get the point. It's going to be email format is valid and whatever, you know, we established here, and then connection succeed is going to be whatever we established here, and inbox exists is also going to be whatever. So the spread is, we're just kind of, you know, extracting everything in result and kind of, you know, adding it to this object that we're building here in the response, okay? Right. So with our server refreshed, let's go ahead and test this out in Postman. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And okay, cool. Yeah, so email format is valid, true. Connection succeeded, true. Inbox exists, false. So this is a bit odd for an inbox like michael@gmail.com, but it could be that this inbox doesn't exist, because there's many reasons why Gmail will tell you that an inbox doesn't exist. It could also be an error in our code, right? So let's go and see the logs before we actually do anything else, right? Okay. Yeah, I was gonna jump ahead and kind of talk about all the million different reasons why, you know, it could be the case where such a generic email like michael@gmail.com could not exist. Okay, so let's see what happened. Okay, we connected to Gmail, we got a successful response, we sent a hello, so extended hello. Gmail responded with, you know, Gmail at your service, which is great. We said mail from, it said okay. We said recipient to, and here is where it said the email account that you're trying to reach does not exist, right? So this is perfect, right? Please try to double check the recipient's email address for types or for typos or unnecessary spaces. Learn more at whatever. Okay, so this is great. This is Gmail telling us that the email inbox doesn't exist, right? Okay, so let's try another one. Let's try, for example, foobar@gmail.com. Let's see if we're more lucky here. Okay, and here we see we have a true. Inbox is true, which basically means that what did Gmail respond? Gmail responded with recipient to foobar. Gmail responded with okay. So this is basically telling us that the email inbox exists. Okay, great. Yeah, so essentially this is working, and this is our API working right here, right? I mean, you can go ahead and publish this on any API marketplace, and you would potentially start to monetize an API for validating email addresses. Okay. So basically, this is what I wanted to show you this time around. This was going to be a very, very short stream. And I think I'm going to leave it here, right? As I said in the first stream, the goal here was also not to deploy this application. I'm gonna be doing, I already have one video which shows how to deploy this kind of service on Fargate. I'm gonna be doing many more of those. But if you do have questions, please ask. And if you're missing something from these two streams that I've done about building an email validation API, please let me know in the comments. Like, what would you like to see? What have I missed? Would you like to see me do something better, different, dive into more detail on something? Do you feel like you've learned a bit about types and TypeScript? Do you feel like you've learned about the SMTP protocol and how to validate emails? Please let me know, and I may do a follow-up stream or video answering your different questions that you may have, right? So I'm gonna leave it here. Thanks a lot for joining, and I hope this was useful. And stay tuned for more live streams and video. I'm probably going to be doing a video just summarizing this whole development that we've done, so you guys can not have to go maybe through 2.5 hours of stream, but instead just have a short, let's say 30-minute video and see how I coded this. Okay. So thanks again for joining. Make sure you also join our Discord, where we have different channels set up for asking for help or guidance. We also have experts there waiting to answer your questions. We have the voice channel, which you can join on the stream to ask questions. So make sure you join our Discord, and I'll see you in the next stream. Take care.